All right, Rich, we're recording here, so welcome to Engage Live. You're going to be over here in Derry on September 8th to the 10th for a class on experimental portraiture. Tell us what we can expect, what's going to be happening.
Oh, what can you expect? Well, first of all, thanks for having me. I'm excited to be coming over to Ireland. My past experience with Ireland and Irish people has been very nice. Um, what can you expect? I mean, this is probably the biggest workshop I've ever done. 3 days, so we're going to cram so much into the 3 days. So experimental portraiture is obviously the main kind of thing that we'll be looking at. But I'll just talk a little bit about my theories of photography and how that can be applied to everything. So we'll be looking at wedding photography, fashion photography, basically anything and everything. I mean, I think the same principles can be applied to any genre of photography when you're photographing people. So, as I say, primarily experimental portraiture, but if you're photographing people, it's all the same thing. So really, for me, photographing a bride and groom or a fashion shoot, I don't really see, why it needs to be different.
Yeah. What is this philosophy of yours then? I mean, how does it differ from other photographers?
Oh, what I came to sort of realise over the years, I mean, I'm pretty much self-taught, and I've kind of learned the hard way, and that's why I really enjoy helping other people now, and hopefully helping them learn quicker by sort of simplifying things and breaking things down, taking things back to the sort of the root, so you can see, well, actually, how hard is this? Okay, for years, I thought the technical side of photography was a lot harder than it was, and now I've come to realise that it's not actually that hard. If it's explained well, you can learn it quite quickly. So the philosophy side of things, which is the actual question, um, what I like to try and help people with is to make people understand that it's okay to be individual. Okay, so as a photographer, it's quite easy to fall into just being a photographer, looking at what everyone else is doing down the street and saying, okay, so this is what photographers do, this is what I'm going to do. And very often, a lot of photographers sort of chase the same images and the same styles and things. And I think it's really important. And for me, the only reason why I'm still making a living from photography is by always striving to be myself, be an individual, and try to be original, or as original as I can be. Business is not really my forte, although over the years I've, through trial and error, I've learned ways that work well with the kind of way I work. So um, the philosophy really is just about encouraging people to be themselves and take images that come from their own mind and imagination.
Okay. And you're going to be kind of bringing that to bear on two shoots that you're going to do for us. One is a kind of individual um, shoot, and the other is going to involve bride and groom. So, how are you going to tackle them, do you think?
Oh, okay. Well, I'm going to tackle them the same way I tackle anything, really. I mean, as I say, the two, if I break things down, so the wedding couple, photographing the wedding couple, naturally we would think of traditional wedding photography, which I do a reasonable amount of during the wedding. But the more sort of creative side of things, and the shots that people actually book me for, I'm just going to be talking about that and talking about variety and different camera angles, different use of lens, all different ideas that would be well away from traditional wedding photography. Okay, there's this kind of idea, as I say, wedding photography has got this stigma attached to it, where you know you mention the word wedding photography to most people, and they've got the images in their head of how they would see wedding photography. And I think as photographers, it's easy to fall into that trap. And what we need to remember is that traditional wedding photography, a lot of how it looked, kind of looked like that for a reason. They were limited with technology and camera equipment. The reason people stood still by a bush was because, it might have been a 30-second exposure and they have to get a sharp image, so they couldn't be doing anything that involved movement. But yeah, so wedding photography with the kind of portrait and fashion influence, how to be different, and most importantly, which is the one of the biggest things that I stress, and I'll be talking about this during the shoot, is how you look on the day is just as important as how the photographs come out. As photographers, we're not just creating images; we're creating memories. The photograph is, to me, is, and I think to a lot of people, is basically it reminds them of the time the photograph was taken. So obviously for the wedding couple, during their wedding day, hopefully they're having a great day, and we need to be part of that day. Okay, for a long time I was very wrapped up in all the technical side of things and off-camera flash, and really I would be thinking about that more than actually making sure the couple were having a good time and they were enjoying it. Okay, it could be the best photograph in the world technically. You know, we could have lights everywhere, you know, brilliantly exposed, everything. But for the person in the photograph, they're just going to say, oh yeah, I remember that. God, we were really freezing. It took him half an hour to set that up. So it's all about balancing the technical side of things with creativity and also making sure people have a good time.
Yeah, excellent.
And then when we come to photograph the individual, I think we've got a female model. Similar, only here, you know, we can really go for it because there are limitations with wedding dresses. You know, a lot of brides don't want to lie down and things in them, although, you know, I'll try my best to get brides to lie down and do things that perhaps they wouldn't think initially of doing in their wedding dress. But yeah, when it comes to just the model, you know, we're going to have loads of fun. I mean, I'm not quite sure the location, but I'm going to be talking technically about off-camera flash, and I've got a great method that I use all the time. And this is the great thing about photography, you know, for me, it took so long to learn the technical side of things, and now that I've got to a point where I'm comfortable, I can be free to be creative. And really, the best images that I've taken, you know, recently, because the technical side is just like second nature. Okay, it's kind of like driving a car, and when we're learning to drive, it's the worst part about it. You're thinking about the clutch. You're thinking, what gear am I in? Right, I'm in third, right down to fourth. Thinking like this, very much like photography. If we've got the camera in our hand and we're thinking, right, do I want to be on F11 now or do I want to be on F8? You know, if we're thinking those thoughts at the time of the shoot when we've got somebody in front of us, regardless of whether they're paying us or not, you know, we want them to have a good time. And for them to have a good time, all of the energy needs to be going into the people we're photographing. So, like driving the car, you pass your test, and then you really learn to drive, and then years later you can actually enjoy driving. You can put your music on, you can have a smoke at the window, you drive with one hand. You're not thinking about driving, you're enjoying the drive. So that's how I kind of see photography. And now to be able to be at that point technically is amazing because I can really focus on the things that really actually matter.
From the other side of things, then, Rich, from the client's point of view, do you think people are becoming more open to that kind of experimental wedding photography, for example? Like, you know, you say that a lot of them are kind of like stock images and everybody does the same poses and the same shots and all. From a client's point of view, are you getting more inquiries from people wanting something different, something unique?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I think the biggest thing that I've come to realise over the years is that, you know, people really, I mean, there's 6 billion, 7 billion, you know, there's a lot of people who live on this planet. And the hardest thing you can do as a photographer is to try and please everybody. And I think that's what people do in the early days is they set up a website and they say, right, I'm a wedding photographer, so I need cake cutting shots, I need shots stood by the car, I need shots of flowers, all these kind of things, which is fair enough to think. But then the reality is that whatever you show is what you're going to attract. So sometimes people say to me, oh, the thing is, Rich, you know, my wedding couples won't do that. They won't, you know, they won't do this, they won't do that. And I say, well, they've booked you for the reason of this. You know, if it's a traditional wedding photography, waist up portrait, stood by a bush, stood with a building in the background, you can't then on the day expect them to be right, come over here and lie upside down on these stairs, because they're going to go, hang on, I thought we just stood by this building back here. So I'm going to talk a lot about that, and again, how I think it's important to be individual and not to be afraid to do what you want to do. As I say, wedding photography generally, to me, is very boring. In the past, I've been I've upset people by saying that, and I think weddings in general, from a photography point of view, can be very boring, and that's why a lot of people turn their nose at weddings, and particularly students. When I was in college, university, people, wedding photography, that's just kind of boring stuff, but it's only as boring as you kind of let it be, really. So I'm going to talk about how you can start to go down avenues and actually photograph things how you want to photograph them, and then eventually you will start attracting the right kind of people into your kind of business. The thing is do you need 100 weddings a year because you just need the money, or do you want to have, like a lot of people now, I mean, like there's people I know who are shooting a lot of weddings at a low price, and they're just getting them in through the door, and it's a production line, okay? So it really depends whether photography is a business, in terms of you literally just care about making money, or if, like me, you care about making money, but you also care about having fun and enjoying it. Photography can be the best job in the world, I think, if you're doing things the way you want to do them. And for me, I'm fortunate to be in a position now where I can ask a bride to lie upside down on some stairs, and she's kind of half expecting it. Or I can climb a tree, and they kind of still look at me a bit funny, but they kind of expect me to do that, because they're kind of booking me on that level, really. So it's a lot harder to be a photographer than it is to be an artist. And I think there's a big difference between the two. And I think to be an artist is really just trying to be yourself.